I wanted to briefly talk about the flowers and make sure that everybody's kind of on the same page. I know you've already done the writing assignment, and from what I've seen so far, you're definitely on target. There are just a couple of things I'd like to point out. First of all, this is my first attempt at using Cami, and you can tell that although the highlights transfer over, none of the comments do, which was annoying. The way I discovered to fix this problem was to save it as a PDF with the annotations, and then download it to my hard drive. Something about downloading it to the hard drive as opposed to just Google Drive, I don't know. It makes a difference. And then once it's on the hard drive, of course, you then upload to Google Drive. It's an extra step, but it actually keeps the annotations on there. So anyway, most of you got the whole innocence to experience idea here. Couple of things I'd like to point out, because the prompt was about how does Alice Walker prepare you for what's coming. And if you look at this, obviously she's skipping lightly from her house to her pig pen to her smokehouse. So that tells me she is living in the country. This is a family that, raises their own food. Here, the cotton, the peanuts, and the squash. I can't say for squash, but cotton and peanuts are definitely southern state crops. And so even if I don't know who Alice Walker is, I don't know that she's an African American author. If I'm paying attention to the crops that she is skipping through, I'm going to have an idea of where this story takes place. So little kid, she's, beating things up because they don't know any better, whatever. As she goes through this, everything is happy. She's happy-go-lucky. This line, nothing existed for her but the song, that ultimate childhood innocence that, they don't really have much of a conception of what's going on beyond their immediate surroundings. Her dark brown hand tells me she's African American. If I didn't know Southern states, then here, when it says her family's sharecropper cabin, that definitely is going to tell me who Myop is, where she comes from, where the family got their drinking water from the spring. This is not a wealthy family at all. And then I get little things like the white bubbles disrupt the black scale of soil. And so I'm getting little hints here about what this story is about. And then we start to get kind of some strange blue flowers. By the time we get to this paragraph, we've got the strangeness of the land. So we're definitely seeing a shift in tone. It's gloomy. And then here, the air was damp, the silence close and deep. We're moving away from that innocent childhood moment. We get to this paragraph, and then, of course, the shift is right here when she steps smack into his eyes. She steps into his body, on his body. And the fact that the body, the broken ridge between the brow and the nose, something has happened to this body. And at first, she says here, it says she's unafraid to free herself. She doesn't really understand what has happened until it says she saw his naked grin. Okay, naked grin, if you're looking at a body, means that the body's been there long enough for the flesh to rot away. He'd been a tall man, from feet to neck covered a long space. His head lay beside him. So somehow his head has become detached from his body. When she digs to find it, she says he has large white teeth, all of them cracked or broken. Could this mean that his body, he was beaten? Very possibly. His clothing had rotten away except for the blue denim from his overalls. Again, post-Civil War South. The buckle over the overall had turned green. He's been there a long time. And then it talks about she sees the pink rose, which of course most of you picked up on. Hey, that's innocence. She picks it, but then she sees the mound, the ring, and she discovers the noose. So how did this man die? What did white Southerners do to black Southerners they didn't like after the Civil War? Yeah, he was lynched. And then they just left him there. And you see, if you didn't understand that, you've got this over an overhanging limb. Another piece of rope is hanging to it. So she's basically walked straight into the racism and the horror that is, the post-Civil War South. And then the summer was over. We've got that great, super short sentence that just kind of punches you with her loss of innocence. So hopefully my interpretation is pretty much like your interpretation, and hopefully this will kind of bolster your confidence if you were unsure. I hope this has been useful.